Hey everyone, this is my second time recording Chapter 8. The first one was corrupted, so here we go again. Chapter 8, from The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. What happened after dinner? Please forgive the background noises. My house is crazy. And now, said Lucy, do tell us what happened to Mr. Tumnus. Oh, that's bad, said Mr. Beaver, shaking his head. And a very, very bad business. There's no doubt he was taken off by the police. I got that from a bird who saw it done. But where's he been taken to? Asked Lucy. Well, they were heading northwards when they were last seen, and we all know what that means. No, we don't, said Susan. Master Beaver shook his head in a very gloomy fashion. I'm afraid it means that they were taking him to her house, he said. But what'll they do to him, Mr. Beaver? Gasped Lucy. Well, said Master Beaver, you can't exactly say for sure, but there's not many taken in there that ever comes out again. Statues, all full of statues, they say it is, in the courtyard and up the stairs and in the hall. People she's turned. He paused and shuddered, turned into stone. But Mr. Beaver said Lucy, can't we? We must do something to save him. It's too dreadful, and it's all on my account. But I don't doubt you'd save him if you could, dearie, said Mrs. Beaver, but you've no chance of getting into that house against her will and ever coming out alive. Couldn't we have some stratagem, said Peter. Couldn't we dress up as something, or pretend to be, peddlers or anything, or watch till she's gotten out, or, hang it all, there must be some way. This fawn saved my sister at his own risk, Master Beaver. We can't just leave him to have that done to him. It's no good, son of Adam, said Master Beaver. No good you're trying of all people. But now that Aslan is on the move. Oh, yes, tell us about Aslan, said several voices at once. For once again, that strange feeling, like the first kind of spring, had come over them. Who is Aslan? Asked Susan. Aslan, said Master Beaver. Why, don't you know? He's the king. He's the lord of the whole wood. But not often here, you understand. Never in my time or my father's time. But the word has reached us that he has come back. He is in Narnia at this moment. He'll settle the White Queen all right. It is he, not you, that will save Mr. Tumnus. She won't turn him into stone too, said Edmund. Lord love you, son of Adam. What a simple thing to say, answered Master Beaver with a great laugh. Turn him into stone. If she can't stand on her own 2 feet and look at him in the face, it'll be the most she can do and more than I expect of her. No, he'll put all rights to it, as he says in an old rhyme in these parts. Wrong will be right when Aslan comes in sight. At the sound of his roar, sorrows will be no more. When he bares his teeth, winter meets its death. When he shakes his mane, we'll have spring again. You'll understand when you see him. But shall we see him? Asked Susan. Why, daughter of Eve, that's why I brought you here for. I'm to lead you to where you shall meet him, said Mr. Beaver. Is he a man? Asked Lucy. Aslan a man, said Mr. Beaver sternly. Certainly not. I tell you, he's the king of the wood, and the son of the great emperor beyond the sea. Don't you know the king of beasts? Aslan is a lion, the great lion. Oh, said Susan, I thought he was a man. Is he quite safe? I'd feel rather nervous about meeting a lion. Oh, said Suze. That you will, dearie, make no mistake, said Mrs. Beaver. If there's anyone who can appear before Aslan without their knees knocking, well, they're either braver than most or else just silly. Then he isn't safe, said Lucy. Safe, said Master Beaver. Don't you hear what Mrs. Beaver tells you? Who said anything about safe? Of course he isn't safe, but he's good. He's the king, I tell you. I'm longing to see him, said Peter, even if I do feel frightened when it comes to the point. That's right, son of Adam, said Mr. Beaver, bringing down his paw on the table with a crash that made all the cups and saucers rattle. And you shall. Word has been sent that you are to meet him, tomorrow if you can, at the stone table. Where's that? Said Lucy. I'll show you, said Master Beaver. It's down the river a good step from here. I'll take you to it. But meanwhile, what about poor Mr. Tumnus, said Lucy. The quickest way you can help him is by going to meet Aslan, said Mr. Beaver. Once he's with us, then we can begin doing things. Not that we don't need you, too, and that's another of the old rhymes. When Adam's flesh and Adam's bone sits at Cair Paravel enthroned, this time of evil will be over and done. So things must be drawing near their end. Now he's come and you've come. We've heard of Aslan coming into these parts before, long ago. Nobody can say when, but there's never been any of your race here before. That's what I don't understand, Mr. Beaver, said Peter. I mean, isn't the witch herself human? She'd like us to believe it, said Mr. Beaver, and it's on that she bases her claims to be queen. But she's no daughter of Eve. She comes of your father Adam's. Here, Mr. Beaver bowed. Your father Adam's first wife. They call her Lilith, and she was one of the jinn, and that she comes from on one side, and on the other she comes from the giants. No, there isn't a drop of real human blood in the witch. That's why she's all bad though, Mr. Beaver, said Mrs. Beaver. True enough, Mrs. Beaver, he replied. There may be two views about humans, meaning no offense to the present company, but there's no two views about things that look like humans and aren't. I've known good dwarves, said Mrs. Beaver. So have I, come now to speak of it, said her husband, but precious few, and they were the least like men. In general, take my advice. When you meet anything that's going to be human and isn't, or used to be human once and isn't now, or ought to be human and isn't, you keep your eyes on it and feel for your hatchet. And that's why the witch is always on the lookout for any humans in Narnia. She's been watching for you this many a year, and if she knew that there were four of you, she'd be more dangerous still. What's that to do with it? Asked Peter. Because of another prophecy, said Mr. Beaver. Down at Cair Paravel, that's the castle on the sea coast down at the mouth of the river, which ought to be the capital of the whole country, as it should be. Down at Cair Paravel there are 4 thrones, and is saying in Narnia, time out of mind, that when 2 sons of Adam and 2 daughters of Eve sit on those 4 thrones, it will be the end, not only of the White Witch's reign, but of her life. And that is why we had to be so cautious when we came along, for if she knew about you 4, your lives wouldn't be worth the shake of my whiskers. All the children had been attending so hard to what Mr. Beaver was telling them that they had noticed nothing else for a long time. Then, during the moment of silence that followed his last remark, Lucy said suddenly, I say, where's Edmund? There was a dreadful pause, and then everyone began asking who saw him last and how long he had been missing. Is he outside? And then they all rushed to look out the door. The snow was falling thickly and steadily. The green ice of the pool had vanished under a thick white blanket, and from where the little house stood in the center of the dam, you could hardly see either bank. Here's them talking. Out they went, plunging well over their ankles in the new soft snow, and went round the house in every direction. Edmund, Edmund, they called until they were hoarse. But the silently falling snow seemed to muffle their voices, and there was not even an echo in answer. How perfectly dreadful, said Susan as they came last in despair. Oh, how I wish we'd never come. What on earth are we to do, Mr. Beaver, said Peter. Do, said Mr. Beaver, who was already putting on his snow boots. Do? We must be off at once. We haven't a moment to spare. We'd better divide into 4 search parties, said Peter, and all go look in different directions. Whoever finds him must come back here at once and... Search parties, son of Adam, said Mr. Beaver. What for? Why, to look for Edmund, of course. There's no point in looking for him, said Mr. Beaver. What do you mean? Asked Susan. He can't be far away yet. We've got to find him. What do you mean, saying there's no reason looking for him? The reason there's no looking for Mr. Beaver is that we already know where he's gone. Everyone stared in amazement. Don't you understand? Said Mr. Beaver. He's gone to her, to the White Witch. He has betrayed us all. "Oh, surely. Oh, really?" said Susan. "He can't have done that." "Can't he?" said Mr. Beaver, looking very hard at the three children, and suddenly everything they wanted to say died on their lips, for each felt quite certain inside that it was exactly what Edmund had done. "But will he know the way?" said Peter. "Has he been in this country before?" asked Mr. Beaver. "Has he ever been here alone?" "Yes," said Lucy, almost in a whisper. "I'm afraid he has." "And did he tell you what he'd done or who he'd met?" "Well, no, he didn't," said Lucy. "Then mark my words," said Mr. Beaver. "He's already met the White Witch and joined her side, and been told where she lives. I didn't like to mention it before, he being your brother and all. But the moment I set eyes on that brother of yours, I said to myself, treacherous. He had the look of one who had been with the White Witch and eaten her food. You can always tell them if you lived long enough in Narnia. Something about their eyes." "All the same," said Peter in a rather choking sort of voice, "we'll still have to go forth and look for him. He's our brother, after all, even if he is a rather little beast. He's only a kid." "Go to the White Witch's house?" said Mr. Beaver. "Don't you see that the only chance of saving either him or yourselves is to keep away from her?" "What do you mean?" said Lucy. "Why, all she wants is to get all four of you. She's thinking all the time of those 4 thrones at Cair Paravel. Once you were all 4 inside her house, her job would be done. And there'd be 4 new statues in her collection before you had time to speak. But she'll keep him alive as long as he's the only one she's got, because she'll want to use him as a decoy, as bait to catch the rest of us with." "Oh, can no one help us?" wailed Lucy. "Only Aslan," said Mr. Beaver. "But we must go on and meet him. That's our only chance now. It seems to me, dears," said Mrs. Beaver, "that it's very important to know just when he slipped away. How much can he tell her depends on how much he heard. For instance, had we started talking of Aslan before he left? If not, then we may do very, very well, for she won't know that Aslan has come into Narnia, or that we are meeting him, and we will be quite off her guard as far as that is concerned." "I don't remember his being there when we were talking about Aslan," began Peter, but Lucy interrupted him. "Oh, yes, he was," she said miserably. "Don't you remember? It was he who asked whether the witch couldn't turn Aslan into stone too." "So he did, by Jove," said Peter. "Just the sort of thing he would say too." "Worse and worse," said Master Beaver. "And the next thing is this. Was he still here when I told you that the place for meeting Aslan was the stone table?" And of course no one knew the answer to this question, because if he was, continued Mr. Beaver, then she'll simply sludge down in that direction and get between us and the stone table and catch us on our way down. In fact, we shall be cut off from Aslan. "But that isn't what she'll do first," said Mrs. Beaver. "Not if I know her. The moment that Edmund tells her that we're all here, she'll set out to catch us this very night. And if he's been gone about a half an hour, she'll be here in about another 20 minutes. "You're right, Mrs. Beaver," said her husband. "Then we all must get away from here. There's not a moment to lose." And that's the end of the chapter. Your questions are where did Edmund go? And why is it important to know what all Edmund heard in their discussion? Who is Aslan, and why is he important? And the last question is, why must they get away from the Beaver's house right away? All right, I miss you all.